So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this wonderful webinar this afternoon, where we hear from lots of the folks connected to and really some catalysing the regenerative movement around Australia. My name is Michelle Maloney. I'm the co-founder and national convener of the Australian Earth Laws Alliance. And September for AELA is Earth Laws Month. We're hosting more than 30 online events celebrating humanity's relationship with the living world. And part of our commitment to caring for country and caring for place on this continent is acknowledging country. So I'd actually like to share screen. Oh, please hold while I bring up my slides. So this is our little blatant advertisement for Earth Laws Month. And if you're not familiar with who AELA is, we work towards Earth-centered systems change. We're passionate about increasing the understanding and practical implementation of Earth-centered governance. Our work, excuse me, is multidisciplinary, but we're particularly interested in connecting with and promoting Indigenous knowledge, working across science, law, economics, education, ethics, and the arts. And if you check out our program on the earthlaws.org.au website, you'll see we have some amazing people talking across this whole month. And if you've missed any, don't worry. Nearly all the events are being recorded and will be public in October, but we do encourage everyone to register so that we can send you info. So today's webinar, as I mentioned, is all about sharing updates from across the regenerative movement, or at least, invited folks who are connected to those different elements of what's going on in Australia. But first, I'd like to acknowledge country. I live, work and play on the traditional lands of the Yagara and Turrbal peoples in North Brisbane. I'd like to acknowledge the elders past and present and emerging leaders and elders across the beautiful patch of country that I live on. I'd like to acknowledge the remarkable civilizational culture that has cared for country and cared for each other since time immemorial. This beautiful map representing some of the boundaries of traditional folks and their estates across this continent is a nice reminder to all of you watching today. If you'd like to pop into the chat where you are and whose country you're on, it's become quite a nice Zoom tradition, I think. In the work that we do inside the Australian Earth Laws Alliance and our sister organisations, Future Dreaming and the New Economy Network Australia, we're really committed to working in solidarity with First Peoples, but also recognising our own cultural heritage. In my case, I come from the Irish folks who were forcibly moved here under the British Empire's penal system. And I also like to very seriously acknowledge the ongoing legacy and impacts of colonisation and the colonial project of empire that we still live with today. And much of our work is about decolonising hearts and minds, which is a lovely segue into today's really important discussion. No, I won't thank you yet. I'll stop sharing. I kept my slides nice and simple. So today's format is going to be relaxed. We've got somewhere between 10 and 12 speakers are popping in and popping out. But what I'm really delighted is that we're going to start with, firstly, we're inviting Adjunct Associate Professor Mary Graham, who is a Kombu Mary person and also a Director of Future Dreaming. To get us into the right way of thinking and the flavour of regeneration, Mary will give a short talk about the Relationalist Ethos and Aboriginal philosophy. And I'll put in some links to other longer talks by Mary. If you've never heard Mary talk about the Relationalist Ethos and the Aboriginal Law of Obligation, I really strongly urge you to look up her work on YouTube, on the Future Dreaming website, and a recent 1-hour public lecture she gave on green prints, because her material is just fantastic and is the basis of a lot of really great work going on at the moment. I'm then going to invite Ross Williams, another director from Future Dreaming, and also together with Mary and Alana and others, part of Regenerative Songlines Australia, an Indigenous-led initiative. Alana Marsh will speak third, and Alana will talk about regenerative practice and other issues. And after Alana, we'll have Dimity Podger, Nicole Barling-Luke, And I won't even mention all the other speakers, but we've got lots of other lovely folks coming on after a short break at 4. So if all goes well, some of those speakers who aren't even there yet will appear magically and it'll all be grand. But I'm going to take us all off spotlight now, except for Mary Graham. But thank you so much to everyone for joining us, and settle in for a lovely catch up on what folks have been up to around Australia and what some of their plans are. So over to you, Mary, and how are you today?
Okay, good, thanks. Good, thanks, everybody. Well, I will start off in a way that I usually don't start off. I'll start straight off into the relational, more or less saying that at some point a very long time ago, early human beings realized through a process of realization, of reflectivity actually, and then realizing that we are more than one beings within ourselves. In the old days, ancient days, when death occurred in a group, people didn't hang around, they didn't make any note of it, they didn't make any marking of it either, they just moved on. If it was a death from fighting or wild animals or something like that. So they didn't hold to any kind of important sort of point about it. At some point in the long development of this reflectivity, we share some things with other people, other life forms, physicality, spirituality. Later on that develops. So whether scientists believe it or not, there is such a thing as spirituality. Most of the world's population believe it. Sooner or later, scientists will discover it, but probably call it something else actually. Sentience, which is, when you kick the cat, where it's kicked, it's hurt, but its feelings are hurt too, just like anybody would be hurt, your feelings. Your consciousness, science only realized consciousness is present in plant life, apparently. A couple of decades ago, they discovered that. And of course, instinct. All those 5 things we share with other life forms. The one thing we don't share is with reflectivity. You won't find 2, koalas having a conversation about the meaning of life in the tree there, but you never know, you can't be too sure about these. So gradually over a long period of time, the reflectivity starts, and it's like a discovery that we are more than one figure. We are more than just physical beings. We are actually spiritual beings. We have some other life force. You can call it just a spiritual life force that is in us too. So at some point, it's never clear when that happens for anthropologists, but it happens, and they look for the evidence of it. And the evidence, of course, as everybody knows, is burial sites and markings on stone walls or rock art, like here or anywhere around the world. That means that death is something else. It's not just nothing, it's something that's happened to the life force of the person who's died, and so on. So we become spiritual beings, really, by this development, It's not the beginning of religion or anything like that. It's just pure, it might be a case of wondering, even just wondering where do spirits hang out, They go somewhere, but they hang out somewhere. And of course, from our point of view, and many Indigenous peoples, of course, they go to wherever their ancestors have gone. And to me, that seems like a great logical kind of answer, without going into the whole thing of theology. Wherever they've gone somewhere, you don't know where, but wherever they've gone, we're highly likely, that term, highly likely to have gone there too. So we'll meet them again somewhere. Not necessarily in a great, architect designed kind of palace or anything like that, mansions and all that kind of stuff, but where the ancestors are. And that'll be good, that'll be enough, because you're going to be there forever. The assumption is. But also relationalism starts for Aboriginal people with land, because the idea is that land has invented us. Many Indigenous people around the world think that too, They imagine, you know, in different, the imaginings are different. And so the ideas about it, beliefs or whatever you like, is all different from country to country, culture to culture and so on. So ours is when Aboriginal people are asked where we come from, who we are, we haven't come from anywhere else, we've come from this place here. The land is the law. The land is the source of the law. So the land is the source of all meaning. That's essentially what it means. So relationalism begins with this relationship with land, not any other spirit, a spirit being, a Godhead type spirit being or anything like that. We come from something that is equally alive as the same as us. And the only thing there is, of course, is what we're walking on that's alive, you know, and it changes and it moves and it talks to us and we talk to it and so on. So it's more likely that that's the thing that invented us. So relationalism begins like that. So you might think it's a contradiction with the other idea that humans come from Africa. It isn't. Both ideas are true and they don't contradict each other. They sound like they do, but they don't. You know, we found our spirituality, our humanness in this country. So the dreaming stories are all about this country, not about, no story about, you know, elephant dreaming or monkey dreaming or nothing like that. It's all the life forms from this country here, right here. So relationalism is about, first of all, autonomy. You're a physical, spiritual being, an autonomous physical, spiritual being. You are your own boss. You are not there to bow down to, worship, hold anybody else or anything else above you. Not at all. You're an autonomous being. And women are definitely autonomous beings. They are their own boss. They own themselves. They are not, you know, handmaidens or baby factories or, you know, servants to be enslaved, bought and sold by anybody else. You know, nobody else. You are autonomous. And the way of operating with each other, the relationship between the two autonomous beings is autonomous regard. So it's essentially not only like respect, obviously, but it's not seeing the other autonomous person, even the one you don't like, the one that doesn't like you, maybe he wants to kill you, you know, you see them as, you don't see them as less than human. You're not supposed to. And if anybody is like that, well, they have a problem with simply working out these things, you know, and so on. And it's a very dangerous place, of course, you know, as it still is in many parts of the world. So autonomy is extremely important. Balance is a big one of relationality. Balance, so balance is gender balance, governance balance. Genders, male and female, men's law, women's spirituality, men's spirituality, women's all kinds of things. I would say even myself, but sort of working with other people on this, that logic is gendered too. I do believe that men and women have their own logic, actually, because mainly with the logic, the men have written it up, Aristotle, and so it's actually been called a gender. It's actually been called patriarchal logic, you know. And it's not so. I think it's quite different. Well, we've got to work on that. But partly because in some of our call them what you like, myths or the metaphysics. The sun is male. The sun is female, and the moon is male. They're both unequal in terms of things like energy. The sun is enormous, you know, enormous amounts of energy. The moon is less, so they are unequal. But the idea is that they must remain in balance. If they are not in balance, that'd be bad news for the earth, wouldn't it? You know, so they've got to stay in balance, and they've got to be seen as in balance. One can't do without the other, you know. So it's the same as female and male and so on. And I'm sorry, I don't get into the conversation about trans and stuff. I don't know how to without, you know, but it's much deeper than that. It's all respectful and all that, as far as I'm concerned, for myself. The third one, the other balance is, and this is really, I think this is extremely important, which is also why you have to have men and women kind of quite equal in running society. Balance is between two big problematics, I call them, that all human groups, from modern Homo sapiens to Neanderthals, they had to work out how to sort this thing of power and authority out, how to sort it out. Most ancient cultures, they put them together. They conflated power and authority. So if you had power, that gave you the authority to run a society, communities, however you like, because power, wealth, armies, guards, weaponry is all on the side of that conflated system of a hierarchy with rulers at the top, cruel or otherwise, can tell everybody else, all the different classes, all the different caste systems, what to do. They can boss them around as they like and be as cruel or benign as they like, So the Aboriginal system was flat because they did something quite unique with authority and power. They separated them so they can be in balance, actually. So authority consists of older people, and mainly because all older people, across cultures, across the world, they know a great deal. So they have a quantum of knowledge about things because they're so older, plus a quantum of experience because they're older. They've lived longer, seen good things, bad things, all that. Those two things especially ride on, or are based on, principled living, really, an ethic of an ethical governance system, really. An ethical governance system that's based on the law of obligation, or that custodial ethic. You have to keep going with that. So elders also include younger people. It has to, because young people have other very, very good qualities that are much needed with knowledgeable people. First of all, they have energy, which is invaluable, but also they're curious, they're creative, innovative, love learning. They're supposed to, these younger people who are in the knowledgeable group, love learning, want to, in a sense, they are elders in training, if you like, knowledgeable people in training. The big thing one of the hurdles they have to overcome is egotism, because egotism is natural in young people, in children and so on. It's a natural thing, a part of growing up. But as they get older and older and more experienced, that ego has to be managed very well. So that's the only thing that they have to try and overcome to become not part of the knowledgeable people thing. And the knowledgeable people aren't rulers. Elders are not rulers. They don't rule society. They are there as great exemplars, as to lending gravitas and seriousness to the responsibility of running a country or running a community. And power, though, power always has to be within the hands of the people. So power is diffused throughout the people. There's old sayings like power to the people, from Europeans, old protest sayings. And it usually used to happen along with the other sayings like workers of the world unite. So all the poorer people, they have to stick together to survive and so on and so on. Well, power, if it was kept in the hands of the people, ordinary people, that, complaints and protests and riots and revolutions just simply wouldn't happen. So the people, power, it's that kind of power, not the kind of power of you wield it around like a weapon. A weapon is power too. But so the elders, the knowledgeable people, are in balance with the people themselves. They can't order them about like dictators. They're not like they're not supposed to be like pharaohs or emperors or a theocratic system, you know, or simply a dictatorship, or monarchies for that matter. Don't have it like that at all, because power has to be kept in the hands there of people. The third one is place. The importance of place is crucial, absolutely crucial. There's this old saying by an old Greek philosopher, old French philosopher, "I think, therefore I am," by Descartes. Everybody, I think, is familiar with that. The Aboriginal equivalent is "I am located, therefore I am." So you, by your mother and father, where they come from, that's where meaning comes from. Meaning in life. That's it, from a location in land. The fourth one is ethics. It sounds strange, we don't have ethics, Aboriginal people, but of course we do, in the form of the law. The law, L-A-W-L-O-R-E, that takes the position of what ethics or morality is, actually. But it's extremely important. It's a major monumental concept of law that takes into account meaning and behavior, not just behavior, not just breaking rules or anything like that. A kinship system, really elaborate, quite elaborate. I can't go into it because I can hardly describe it myself because it's so complex. There's law or laws that manage that kinship system all around the country. In the old days, all around the country. Nowadays, a lot of old ways have been damaged badly. People have been taken away, so they forget it. They don't remember it. They don't know it. They try to regenerate it, like we're doing now today, and in other parts of the country, people try to regenerate these old things, you know, because the key thing about all of them is that people need stability in their lives, and stability comes before security. The ruling idea in the globe today is that security comes first. It's bad news. You know, it's not right. It's wrong thinking, actually. You have to have a stable system, and then you'll get security, you know. But of course, it worked the opposite way for us. We had a stable system for tens of thousands of years, and then colonialism came here, and that's the end of security, basically. It interfered with the stability, but you know, the security. And wherever invasions have occurred, remember, insecurity just follows. It's part and parcel of any place that has been invaded, insecurity. And that's what the whole world is going through now, because imperialism and insecurity, that's been going on everywhere, hasn't it, for thousands of years and so on. So that's relationalism. So the relationalist ethos is to have something outside of the self, like land, like the law of the land. Land is the source of the law, to look after something outside of the self, not leading towards religion or ideology. The other ethos is survivalist ethos. Everybody knows a survivalist ethos. I don't know if I went through this. It went through the survivalist ethos comes from the competitive ethos, and that's what started a long time ago, 10,000, 12,000 years ago, with the large scale. What do you call it?
Agriculture.
Agriculture. That word, agriculture. So competitive ethos started then, and hasn't stopped.
Thanks,
hasn't stopped.
Mary. Yeah, I hate cutting you off.
No, I was just going to.
Mary and I work together a lot. So, did you want to just finish up with just that final reminder that the relationist ethos, and you know, is a great way for us non-Indigenous folks to be informed about our regenerative work, isn't it? It's a
yes, no, it is great. It is great. It's a very, very good way of reminding ourselves and keeping on in any kind of regenerative work with communities, with your friends, with other people. And there are some good things going on, like people's assemblies I've heard about. It started in, I think in the UK, I'm not quite sure, but randomly selected people who are like people's assemblies, trying to get over the mistakes of democracy, the weakness, I should say, of democracy, because everybody knows, you know, a democratic society, the weakness is there. There are still millions of people living in terrible poverty, you know, no good healthcare protection, no protection for lower income people and so on. So it just has to make you wonder about what the good of what democracy is, what it's about, you know. But the other thing I would really firmly suggest to people is that don't forget about governance. That's one word that should be up there, I think, with those other words like economics and education, is that it's no good looking after the land if you haven't worked out what a governance system, the best one is to have, in order to, that would help that, because this governance system will never do that. They will never do that. And that's the big question, is how do you get to a different global governance system? And that means tackling politics, you know.
Thanks.
So please do that, you know.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. I hate cutting you off. We've got
No, that's right.
I know that you've got to dash off shortly.
Yes, I have.
We have quite a number of other speakers too, but
Yep.
I've put in the chat there for everybody. Mary's 1 hour public lecture on the Relationalist Ethos is really brilliant. I work with Mary on a number of projects, and that 1 hour lecture that I've put in there, for those who would like to hear more, please do look it up and have a look for Mary's work. Mary may come back and join us. So.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just say one more thing?
Yeah, of course.
Just about Aboriginal governance.
Yes.
I don't go into a whole lot of problems, you know, any kind of dysfunctionalism stuff. There's heaps of them, you know, I know. But as far as Aboriginal affairs goes, this is to do with this treaty and all that, I think Aboriginal people should simply run Aboriginal affairs. Don't get involved in a whole lot of other extraneous things. We should run Aboriginal affairs because we've run the country for so long. We know how to run a country. So just leave it to us. You probably save money too, by the way. So I'll leave it there. Yeah.
Thank you, Mary. Wonderful as always. And I feel terrible having to move on. But thank you. Our next speaker is Ross Williams, involved in a whole range of projects across different fields of work, but I will introduce him today as one of the directors of Future Dreaming and one of the members of the Regenerative Songlines steering group. And we've invited Ross to just say a few words about Future Dreaming and Regen Songlines, and some of the things that he thinks are important in the world of building regenerative societies. Over to you, Ross. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. My name's Ross Williams. I'm a Bindral person from Townsville to Burdekin, father's side. On my mother's side, I'm a Torres Strait Islander from the islands of Mare and Ereb, in the eastern islands of the Torres Strait. I live now on Turrbal country, Turrbal and Yagara country. So it's really important for me to give recognition, and I realise the volume's down. So I've got to fix myself up a bit here.
No, we can hear you. It's all good.
Yeah, okay, cool. First and foremost, I think we really want to get into the basis of regenerative songlines, about what it means and where it came from. I think one of the critical things is that and a lot of people sort of don't understand the complexities of our relationship to land, to the landscape, and that those rules, we must live within the bounds of those rules, and that's called the first laws. The first laws are critical to our existence. So, I mean, you can't live on a continent and coexist relatively well for 60 to 80,000 years without getting something right. And the whole aspect of our existence on this continent really comes from the concept of deep time. So we're going back deep time, and then that deep time means since we've been here on this continent, we became human here on this continent through whatever means, transitional or whatever. We only know that we've become human here, and recent studies and recent findings have indicated that as well, with hair follicles in South Australia, as Auntie Mary's mentioned previously, But deep time is really not in the geological formation times, but in human terms. Deep time for us means that we've learned a lot, and we've been able to adapt and become naturalists here. We've been able to become chemists here. We're astrologists. We have all these experiences and innate knowledge and experience of landscape and country and animals and plants to be able to be here for so long. And I defy anybody to tell me that that anybody, particularly that don't have a contract. I mean, we have a contract still with Mother Nature in Australia, or the continent they call Australia. And that contract was about, you look after me, I'll look after you. I'll provide for you if you provide for me, and you don't take too much, we'll give it back. So the principles by which that operates is the principle that really has been the destructive mechanism for the planet and the planet resources is the word dominion, having dominion over people and land. And from that very word, that destructive nature of that word really detracts human beings from the planet. We've only in recent times, in 230 years, in some places, there's less than 100 years of colonization or contact. And so the reality for that is that we've got to understand that we're living organisms within a living organism, and with living organisms all around us. So when we talk about deep time and we talk about deep listening, the deep listening component of what we do is suspend judgment. And it's actually listening to what other people are saying and why they're saying the things that they do. We have a variety of solutions that can come about in terms of learning with country and how country is a part of us. When we talk about country, we talk about, and when we talk about songlines, we talk about songlines as in storytelling. We have dance lines, we have story lines as well as song lines, because they're all interconnected. And we want to regenerate those song lines again so that we can tell stories, and we know where country is, we know how country operates, we know where animals, plants are at any given moment, we know where water is. We self-adapt back to some of the environmental aspects of climate and adaptation to the existing climate change as well. We had 6 to 7 different seasons, whereas the Western principle is 4. We have all those subtleties. We can see those subtleties. Some places it's lost, but other places they still have those subtle purposes. So we read the earth all the time, we read the water all the time, we read the air, we see the sky. So they're all mechanisms by which we actually learn to live within our own existence. And Auntie Mary, if you ever heard her talk, you say, well, we didn't have any domesticated animals like as in horses and cows and all that other stuff, and she goes on to say, and of course people ask her, how come Aborigines didn't invent the wheel? Well, there's a reason for that. We didn't need one, and we didn't have the animals or domesticated animals to be able to do the things that, so we were able to really adapt very, very well to this continent and how it looked after us. So the important thing is that we as human beings have got to start to realize that we're a part of the system. We're no different to the system. We are within that system. We don't have dominion. If we have tried to continue with our process of dominion, we'll self-destruct. And you'll see a lot of writings with American Indians, and I spend a lot of time with Indigenous elders, and they tell me exactly the same thing, and here we are self-destructing, and what we hang on and what we then derive to and give back in terms of legacy is very, very destructive. So hopefully as human beings, there are solutions, but I can't give you all the solutions right in within 10 minutes. But what I can say is that come back to us, because we have the future dreaming. The future dreaming is really important for us in terms of providing information to people to go on to further research and to find out solutions and opportunities. So we provide that information to Alana Mary and Michelle and myself, and we have sent out invitations to people to come on and provide their advice and information about their learnings. And we got Victor Stephenson, I think, Michelle, coming up very shortly. He's a fire manager, and he travels everywhere, not only around Australia, but he also goes into Canada and places like that. So he's the fire person, and he's an incredible knowledge of fire, and he teaches people how to look at fire as not your enemy, but as your friend. And if you look at fire as a friend, then your whole life will start to change, and the way you adapt to society and the way you adapt to landscape in Australia. It needs fire, and that fire, and he'll go on and tell you, I'm not going to blow his trumpet too far, because that means I'll take away his story. But the old fellows that he talks about, and the old fellows that learned him, are the same old fellows that learnt me. In terms of fire and tracking and stuff. So it's an incredible journey, an incredible experience. So please, by all means, come and join us on Future Dreamings. Michelle will give you the information. And I think I'm doing the something or other, introducing you.
You're hosting.
I'm hosting.
That night.
Well, there you go. I've been advised that I'm hosting. So thanks, Michelle.
No worries, Ross. And I've put the link in there if anyone wants to hear about the importance of fire management in Australia. But thank you, Ross. Ross's leadership for both Regen Songlines, Future Dreaming, and a huge range of other projects that he's involved with are just so important. I'm now very, very pleased to introduce Alana Marsh, and she'll introduce herself what I would say the proper way, her appropriate connections. I would ask if Dimity and Nicole wouldn't mind if Nicole speaks after Alana, just so we can ensure that she can give her talk before she has to disappear just after 4. So I tried to send a note to Dimity, but hopefully she can hear us. But anyway, Alana, I'm really pleased to introduce you and bring you up to share with us the work that you do on regenerative practice and other good things. And thanks again, Ross.
Yes, thanks, Michelle. I'd like to thank Auntie Mary Graham and Ross and Michelle for the opportunity to speak. I've been part of the Indigenous steering group for the Regen Songlines, which has brought me into this space in a really evocative way. I'm a Meriam woman who lives in Melbourne. So my maternal grandparents left the Torres Strait in the 1950s. And so I'm doing that dance between having, I suppose, neoliberal elements or white Australia policy elements into my life, and, trying to weave back to these ways of knowing, being and doing that speak to life, that speak towards love, that speak towards nature and living systems. And, it gives me great pleasure to be an Australian, because I can walk in the footsteps of so many ancestors and learn from so many people, thousands of them, who are all in tune with country. And today, there's this self-evident truth that we live amongst the world's oldest living cultures just humbles and awes me no end. And as Ross was saying, these wisdoms and strengths are self-evident truths. So I now dedicate my life to be of service to living systems. This was after a near-death experience. And it often takes that type of huge event to take stock and evaluate what it's all about and where I fit in. And I know through the work that we're all doing, we're trying to create the conditions to have these profound internal realizations fall upon individuals and collectives. And when they well up from the essence of someone, it can require a lot of patience, grace, humor, grit, sharing, communication, the things that we're doing here in this session today. But it's those realizations that come from within that are the most profound, the most lasting in terms of legacy. So I'm part of the hosting team for the Regenerative Practitioner Series as well. It provides universal frameworks, methodologies, and communities of well-being and doing that are transforming the way humans inhabit the earth. I find it really exciting to see this field expand into new and diverse spaces. And like Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander thinking, I would suggest First Nations thinking the planet over. We get to grapple within the TLP with these self-evident truths, and you can almost see people's understanding of how learning happens grow in leaps and bounds through that reflexivity and governance, some of those principles that Auntie Mary raised. Questions are often answered with questions, and it always depends on the context and your own self-realization. So much better than having someone tell you this is the way it has to be. I'm excited for the time when an Aboriginal community says they want to activate a place source TRP, wrapping their own language and cultural expression around it will bring such meaning to all parties involved, providing new vocabulary to influence and negotiate some of the challenges we face in modernity, but also that validity of being seen and being appreciated and valued, and knowing that you have something that is unique in the world and is of value to others. So my work is relational, and one contemporary methodology to have this sing is the building of a nest together with people who share an intention or a purpose. Nests remind us what is necessary to incubate life, a safe haven while also stretching towards potential. When you build a nest, you respond to prompts that are very carefully crafted. And in my regenerative work, I often ask questions as a prompt or a provocation for the group to respond to around how is your regeneration or how is your work being of service to country? How is your work or your regeneration elevating Aboriginal wisdoms and strengths? Because that is where the true power lies in regenerative work on this continent. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of your talk, Alana.
That is.
You are fabulously efficient. Thank you so much for sharing that. Beautiful. And for those folks who are interested in Alana's work around regenerative practitioner work and the nesting approach, please do shoot us a note. I'll put the main email address in, or the info address for Regen Songlines. Alana's got some really lovely plans on the horizon. So thank you so much for sharing. And we'll now invite Nicole to we'll invite Nicole to share with us. I just know she has to dash off very shortly, but thank you, Alana. And we'll see you soon in our questions, if hopefully if all goes well. Okay, so over to you, Nicole. I'll mention to everyone that Nicole's involved with Regen Melbourne, but other than that, I'll leave the rest up to her. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Alana, Ross, and Mary for framing this session. It's already given me a lot to think about. I'm relatively new to this regenerative space, and so it's such a privilege to kind of be invited in and to learn and connect with everybody here on this call. So as Michelle mentioned, I'm just going to do a little bit of an update from Regen Melbourne around some of the things we've been doing down here. It will be a relatively quick one with a couple of models and diagrams, so apologies if that feels a bit of an abrupt shift from how we've just been sitting and listening. And just to, of course, recognize that these images that I'm going to show are a very easy way to communicate an enormous amount of effort from an enormous amount of people, both in the Regen Melbourne community, but of course in this wider regenerative community. So I hope that it doesn't diminish all that effortful effort that sit behind some of these images that will help me tell this story. So Regen Melbourne. I'll do a real quick kind of like origin story of where it came from, which really was two inflection points. One was the Black Summer fires. And, you know, for many people, myself included, as someone who had grown up in a real urban environment, it was yet again another reminder that in a really embodied way that, you know, our climate is changing in a way that we can no longer ignore. And also then the second inflection point was, of course, that was followed by the pandemic. When a group of organizations in Melbourne kind of gathered together to say, well, what does this mean for this place? And what do we want the story, or what do we want one story of Melbourne to be, as we kind of recognize that this transition is really at our doorstep. One of the transitions are at our doorstep. So a group of organizations kind of came together and convened a community-led research and design process around this question of how do we want Melbourne to kind of emerge and continue its story over the next couple of years. And through that, a vision was created, which is always alive. We're testing this back, we're reflecting on it, and we're making sure that this can be an alive vision and not something static. And so, yeah, as I said, that was created through a community process with hundreds of individuals through lots of online forums during the lockdown in 2020. And then also this thing on the right here, which is the Melbourne Donut. So this is based on the donut economics framework, which Kate Raworth and her team are kind of stewarding. And so on the outside, you've got your planetary boundaries, and on the inside, you've got your social foundations. Oftentimes we fall short on social foundations, and oftentimes we overshoot those planetary boundaries. And we've kind of set out this goal, many places around the world have, of saying, how do we get into that safe and just space for humanity, that green, dough of the donut. So a process was done through this community-led research to say, well, what does Melbourne's donut look like? How do we localize this into our place? And importantly, you can see there that we've got what some people call the jam inside the donut, that kind of red armband, which is healing and reconnecting to country and each other, really saying that is a precursor to kind of how we're going to get into that safe and just space. So this was launched in April 2021 last year, and there was a big influx of energy. We did it in partnership with Melbourne Knowledge Week. And then, if people remember, we went back into a very long lockdown, most of which I can't remember, but behind the scenes, there was a lot of infrastructure being created to say, well, if this is one goal and one vision, how might we kind of organize and set up some governance around that? And what does it mean for this to kind of be more than just a vision? Because we were getting so much energy around it. And so through some work of some organizations and philanthropic funding, we got funding to create a small team in spring last year. And then basically from the end of last year till winter this year, we've been just through a period of experimentation. What does it mean to grow the movement? We've got over 140 organizations now who've kind of put themselves and their resources and their capacities, their hopes and their fears into this to say, well, what might our role be in this? As well as hundreds of individuals who are doing the similar thing and saying how we're going to work together in a collaborative way to kind of get towards this green space. So rushing through what was a very busy period of experimentation where we were kind of exploring what this network and community means to be together, to kind of work on things, to have that imaginative potential of what this place could be, but also trying to start how to try and get into a few more tangible pathways. How can we reimagine, but also remake some of the structures and the systems that we're working with? So this was from an event we ran in May this year. We did a silent disco, listening to sounds of the Birrong River and thinking about how that might change how we're thinking about the ecological restoration there. The one on the left is a reimagining democracy session where we were looking at what are the systems and flows that we kind of currently have and how would we like to reimagine those. All of this is to say we've kind of evolved over the winter period this year. So deep winter in Melbourne was a time of reflection, reflecting on all the interactions and the potential and the patterns we're seeing across all these different systems coming to us, across all these different signals that we're getting across our network and alliance and beyond, and seeing these patterns emerge also with the interconnections we're having with some of the wonderful conversations that Michelle and others have been involved in around the way this is emerging in other places. And just to quickly kind of get into next steps, which again is very broad and brushstroke story here. But if this is the goal that we're moving towards, to be in this green space of the donut, what we've been hearing over the winter and before that in our experimentation is that there is so much creativity and potential, and people are already out there doing all the right work that they need to be doing in this place. And how we can be in service to that at Regen Melbourne is, creating this heart of our beautiful organizations, all this connective tissue between them, and really focusing on these two areas of place-based research. So how are we really listening to this place and organising some of the knowledge systems we have, both through universities, but also listening to all other forms of knowledge, and how we're using that to inform some what we're calling wildly ambitious demonstrator projects. So one of our first projects that we have already started is making the Birrung River swimmable again by 2030. It is of course swimmable upstream, but there are a number of reasons why that isn't possible in what you would know as the Yarra River, right in the middle of docklands there. And so that's our pathway. So if we have asked that as a question of how might we make this swimmable again, it starts to pull in lots of different systems around restoration, but also, you know, there's a business community involved there. There's a community component there of how we reimagine our relationship to our waterways. So that is one of our project pathways, but we're also in a design process right now to surface the others, both just by listening and hearing the collective voice, but also starting to match some patterns. We definitely know there's a pathway around biodiversity, what that might look like, where we're still listening for. But yeah, so what are the sister projects to things that we can start walk towards? They're very intentionally called pathways because we don't know where they're going to take us, but we know that that's going to kind of be the walk that we need to take to kind of build our regenerative practice and, you know, amplify what's already happening in the city. So I'm sure Michelle will pop in some links. I'll pop some in as well so we can get in touch and talk further, because that really was a very high level run through. But it's, as I said at the beginning, it's just such a privilege to be in these conversations. We've got so much to learn in here in Melbourne. We're stumbling forward and really keen to keep listening and seeing how we can make these tangible pathways really regenerative and exciting and joyous as possible.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Nicole. And, you know, Regen Melbourne kicked a lot of the discussions off amongst different cities, including us in Regen Brisbane. So we're really grateful to you and all the ongoing work that you're doing. So thank you, Nicole. I know you have to dash, so I'm secretly very proud that we were able to let you go when you needed to go. So thank you so much again, Nicole. And now I'll invite Dimity to come up, and I'm just going to put her on the spotlight. There we go. So over to Dimity Podger from WWF. Do introduce yourself however you wish. Over to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Michelle, for having me, and it's great to be here with everybody. If you do feel like you need to have a jiggle, please stand up and wiggle about. It's always good to get the energy flowing. Thanks, Tim. See you, Glenn. Good to have a little wiggle. Yeah, it's a real privilege, Michelle, to be here, and thanks so much for making the space for this conversation. And it was wonderful, Annie Mary and Ross and Alana sharing. I just want to learn more and more and work alongside and support, and yeah, just amazing work that's happening and the thinking that frames this movement and conversation amongst us all. I'm joining you from Darawal country here on not quite the south coast of New South Wales, but almost the south coast of New South Wales, south of Wollongong, and would like to pay my respects to the elders of the past, the present and emerging. I'm really excited to be able to share a little bit of the work of WWF. I'm quite new to the team, actually. Only been with the Panda Labs and Innovate to Regenerate within WWF since April, and I'd just like to acknowledge my team member. She's here, Carly Linebeck, who's been with this program for a long time. I would like to share my screen and take you through a little bit of the work that we've been doing. And following on from Nicole and other speakers, the need is nigh to Regenerate Australia, and Regenerate Australia has really caught and captured WWF and its strategy for a period of 5 years. And Innovate to Regenerate, the challenge, and I think I'm trying to, yes, I am shifting along, I hope. Any thumbs up would be most appreciated. Is a program that really is to support the growth and development of regenerative ecosystem across Australia and community-led regeneration and ventures. And it really is up to us, and it's not something that we can do on our own, which is why this community is so exciting and this movement across Australia is so exciting. Just briefly, what this challenge is trying to achieve is this shift in our economy from an extractive economy to regenerative economy. And we need to really build it together, and the challenge provides an opportunity for place-based experimentation and exploration of regenerative ventures and solutions and initiatives that can support this transition and learn what it really is, what it can look like. And there are a couple of different elements to this approach to regeneration. And it really started with this listening campaign over a period of time that led to the creation of this short film, Regenerating Australia, which many, I'm sure, of you have seen it, and created by Regen Studios in partnership with WWF Australia with some funding from Shark Island Foundation, I believe. And so this tour went around Australia with 62 screenings and 7,000 people, and now many hundreds of community and corporate screenings to really build the agency of folks, and a workshop that supports community visioning at the grassroots, which I'll share a bit more about, as well as local learning labs, which are more substantial kind of pre-accelerator experiences to support seeding regenerative ventures in place. And then the challenge, which is $2 million of funding and support packages to really support place-based regenerative solutions and to bring them to life and connect ventures and solutions with an amazing group of curators and experts that really support the strengthening of those solutions. So some projects submit an application to the challenge. They may not receive funding, but they do strengthen their solutions through quite substantial support and guidance. I wanted to touch on the Our Community Vision workshop, which is something that I am tasked with spreading. And Tim, who's here, and his team in Nowra ran a screening recently in August with 59 people, I think, with kids and people from 20 to 80 present. Really, it's a workshop that has the film at its heart, as well as the community, to translate what that their inspiration for regeneration in their community through some awesome creative processes to generate ideas for regeneration. There are ways and means to host your own in your own community across Australia, and I'd love to chat to you if you're interested. I provide training around the workshop itself, and we explore how you might like to design it and deliver it with your team in your community. And then there's a bunch of other resources to connect you to. So if you're interested, here are some pickies. So the Grove in Sydney hosted a screening. We hosted one in Maruya on Brinja Yuin country as part of the local learning lab. Tim hosted one in Nowra, Sydney Facilitators Network, if you're a network or an association or an organisation. And the next one coming up is in Ocean Grove in Victoria. So send me an email if you're keen, and I'll send you an overview and we can book a run through. The next thing I wanted to share with you is this exciting program, the Local Learning Labs, which is a 2-day facilitated experience and a pre-accelerator for regenerative ventures. And it may align with what you're doing with Regen Places. It might be something that could support the formation and founding. You may be in an area or a region where there are a lot of ideas emerging that you're seeking support to really strengthen the regenerative potential of those and design of those projects and initiatives. And we work with local hosts. The Australian Centre for Social Innovation partners with us on this program. And our wish and aim is to foreground First Nations perspectives as part of this. And I'm assuming I'm running out of time, Michelle. There are two key audiences: people who want to plant and grow their venture, and partners who can provide support to weave those ecosystems together in place. Here are some pickies from our first one, our pilot in Brinja country in Eurobodalla. And our next one, hopefully, well, our next one definitely is on Pyramid country in Adelaide Hills and Fleurieu Peninsula in South Australia, and we're looking for another one and beyond. So you may be interested in learning alongside us as part of a peer learning community around these sorts of initiatives. You may be interested in co-hosting or co-funding. Please email pandalabs@wwf.org.au. And I work closely with Carly, who project manages the local learning labs. We'd love to talk to you. And then there's the challenge, which is open. We're looking for ventures that are contributing environmental regen, restoring social capital, local economic development. I'll go through these. This is all on the website. Challenge criteria is looking across all of these elements. Round one had 81 EOIs submitted. They are reviewed by WWF, and 35 applications were submitted. And we now have a portfolio that will be announced on the 30th of September, I believe. So round two is open, and expressions of interest can be submitted by the 5th of October. And this whole process is on the Innovate to Regenerate Impactio platform. And I can drop in the chat the link to that page.
Thank you.
So that's it from me. Thank you for letting me dive into all of that.
Thank you for sharing. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dimity.
You're welcome.
Everybody, we did schedule a 5-minute break. I'd love you to have a break now. It's really important to me that you get up and stretch. Okay, so we can kick off again. And I do hope you had a little break. I managed to get out into the outdoors and look at some blue mountain lorikeets tap dancing across a tree branch. So that was very delightful. I'm now going to, if all goes well and my buttons work, I'm going to play a recording from Willow Burzin. While I do that, I just wonder if there is, in fact, anyone from Regen Sydney. I think they were going to send me a pre-record, but I did not receive one. Is there anyone here who might like to speak for Regen Sydney? Regen Sydney has had a number of excellent events. I know that they're using a mix of applying the donut economic framework to some of their work. They're also connected to Green Prints, which we'll talk about later. They recently had a really successful event at the town hall with a TEDx talk, and some of the contact folks include Bronwyn Morgan, Kieran Kashyap, Alice Howard Weiss, and a few other folks. So if anyone's listening from Sydney, or if you think friends or colleagues might be interested in connecting with the Sydney folks, do let us know and we'll be able to connect you. Oh, there we go. All right. So please, Dimity, I can see you. Would you mind putting your thumbs up if you can hear as soon as I press play, which is about now? Thanks.
Hello, my name's Willow Burzin, and I'm calling in from Wurundjeri country, and I would like to pay my respects to elders past and present on this land where I live. Apologies, I can't be in the room with you all right now. I'm probably at this moment in our untangled time on the kinder pickup. I'm a designer for the Regeneration and one of the people from the Coalition of Everyone and Regen Places. I'm really interested in the intersection of regeneration and democracy, and how might we weave participatory and deliberative practices into the fibres of everyday life for our common goals. We're building a coalition of everyone for the regeneration of everything. And I'd like to invite you to take a moment, take a couple of deep breaths in and out. And imagine a future where all living beings thrive together. This is the inspiration behind Coalition of Everyone, and we hope for Regen Places to get to this brighter, regenerative future. We need everyone moving together and in the same direction at the same time. So what is Regen Places? Catalysed in part through the work we've been doing with Regen Melbourne and Regen Sydney, a group of people started talking together last year. It is becoming a community of practice, supporting the cross-fertilisation of regenerative places, including seeding new Regen Places, some of whom you're meeting with on this webinar. There are currently 4 Regen cities in the public domain, and I believe you can find them all on the NENA website, the New Economy Network Australia website. And there are over a dozen other cities and regions and towns seeding as emerging Regen Places across Australia and New Zealand. This community of practice is so that we can be supporting one another and provide peer learning. And so while we're living in a time of great uncertainty and change, the Regeneration is an invitation for everyone to get involved, to find our roles, be it small or large, to help regenerate the future. The regeneration of everything needs everyone. And so if you're holding a seed for the regenerating where you are, check out the Regenerators website as a starter, or head over to the coalitionofeveryone.com to find out more. Feel free to reach out directly too. You can always email myself and Dimity, my co-convener of Regen Places. And as a very wise person I know says, hold it lightly, which we continue to do, working with urgent patience, practicing active hope, and building a brighter future together. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. So, so Willow Burzin and Dimity and myself and many others across different groups come together once a month to just have a bit of a catch up and to talk to each other about what's going on. And Willow in particular, I think, is trying to build a community of folks to share information and peer-to-peer learning, I guess, about the regenerative process, which is terrific. So what you can see is there's already this organic flourishing with the Indigenous-led Regenerative Songlines Network, the work that myself and others do in Future Dreaming, and Ayla. And Kira will be talking in a moment about Regen Brisbane. And I will mention after Kira talks the Green Prince program, which we run inside Ayla, and which a number of communities who are already connected to the regenerative movement are connecting to, which we'll talk about in a moment. So this has been a really exciting overview so far. Oh, and it's great. I could see Trish Hansen there. So when we come to, so after Kira, we'll be talking about Adelaide, then we'll be coming to Tim Collins to talk about Nowra. So it's all happening. It's all very exciting. So without further ado, Kira, I am literally putting the spotlight on you. Ta-da! And if you unmute, yeah. So everyone, yeah, please, Kira, introduce yourself and let me know if you need to share screen or talk, anything that you need. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle, and thanks to all the speakers so far. My name's Kira Athanasio, and I'm coming to you from the land of the Yagara and Turrbal people, and I'm currently working as the community coordinator for Regen Brisbane, Mianjin. I actually don't have any slides, so unfortunately it's just me talking, but I'm going to keep it short and sweet and just provide a very brief overview of Regen Brisbane and give you a bit of an update on what we have done recently and what we're planning to do in the near future. So Regen Brisbane officially launched in July last year, so slightly behind Melbourne and Sydney. And we're set up inside of Australian Earth Laws Alliance and supported by New Economy Network Australia and Future Dreaming. And we work with Ayla's Green Prince model, which Michelle will talk about soon, and the widely used donut economics framework. Like Regen Brisbane, Regen Melbourne, Regen Brisbane uses its own revised diagram of the donut, which represents a more earth-centric approach and includes Indigenous concepts like caring for country. You can check it out on the Green Prince website, which I've put in the comments, and I'm sure Michelle will talk about it as well. So Regen Brisbane's main roles are to facilitate organisations, networks and individuals in building a regenerative city through collaboration and a shared vision, to link existing bodies within the city and provide strategic and holistic pathways that create a regenerative city ecologically, socially, culturally, and economically. And most importantly, we are guided by local Indigenous wisdom. So yeah, we have had quite a big year this year. We've just finished the last of our 4 Beyond 2032 workshop series, which we teamed up with our partners at Queensland Social Enterprise Council. And it was a co-designed process that provided an opportunity for people in Brisbane and surrounding areas in the Southeast Queensland bioregion to share ideas, explore a vision for the future, and find ways to influence processes going forward. These workshops were received well, and everyone who participated really brought a lot of ideas and knowledge to the table. And we have those recordings on our website. I think there's a couple that we still need to release, but they'll be available soon. So we're now in the process of generating a report from those workshops that will be presented to a range of stakeholders, as well as state and local governments in the near future. And our next plan is to continue to deepen those initial conversations and work together to map out how Brisbane can become regenerative and how we can get those plans into action. And also from those workshops, we created a Regen Brisbane steering group or core group. And we're still not really sure of what to call it yet. But either way, we have expanded, and we had our first meeting, and everyone that is there has different experiences, knowledge and expertise, either in the regen space or other spaces. And we're all really keen to contribute. So that has been really exciting for us, and it's a big step forward. And in between all of that, we are also looking for ways which we can link up with other organisations or individuals to work on projects right now on the ground that will bring new people in, and also provide real examples of how regenerative work can improve our city. So we have a couple of things in the pipeline at the moment, but we're still fleshing out all those details, but hopefully be starting on those things that we can start really soon, that we can connect people to the land right now and start the transformation leading up to the Olympics and beyond. The last thing is we just really continue to connect with other regen families all across the continent and across the seas. There's a couple in New Zealand that are also you know, coming to the meetings, which has been really good. And yeah, if you are interested in you know, sort of connecting with us and are in Brisbane or other places, you can visit our website and join our mailing list, which I'll put in the chat after. So yeah, that's all from me, Michelle.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Kira. And yeah, Regen Brisbane has been heaps of fun working together. And interestingly, we kind of announced or created Regen Brisbane, and then literally 2 weeks later, it was announced that Brisbane would be an Olympic city in 2032. So we've definitely got our hands full with the range of complex issues to be looking into. So thank you so much. I'm actually going to complement Kira's chat, and I might keep Kira spotlighted with a quick blurb about the Green Prince approach. Just see if I can get into the right place. Well, that is that. Yeah, I'm not going to give a long talk. I'll just probably 2-minute summary, and then point you to this lecture that I gave. Well, 23rd of June, and it's a 1-hour recorded overview of the Green Prince approach. It's on our Green Prince website, and that tells you a lot about the method and what we're doing. But in a nutshell, Green Prince, I actually dreamt it up years ago, back in 2014, and then fleshed it out in my brain when I was going through cancer treatment 2015. Then later discovered donut economics, and then years later watched the Regen movement build. But prior to all of that, we also started building the New Economy Network. So Green Prince has been around and bubbling along in terms of developing a deep core methodology built from an Australian context. The Green Prince approach itself, we often like to say it's two things. It's both a process and an outcome. The process is this step-by-step way of helping people bring all the good things together. Now we're referring to it as regenerative, but quite literally when I was dreaming up Green Prince based on 30 years of multidisciplinary work and the good things that others had done. We decided to use a simple word like green prints because there were so many other words around like sustainability and now regenerative. Green prints was shorthand for a lot of complexity. It's really just a play on the word blueprints, but that's neither here nor there. The logo for Green Prints tells the story. It's about looking across the Australian continent and seeing who we are as human beings, starting with that really deep connection, learning from and working as we do in AILA in solidarity with Indigenous friends and colleagues, and trying to pattern ourselves back into the capacity of the living world. While our vision is now framed in regenerative terms, regenerative human societies that thrive within ecological limits, our starting point is very much country, more so than people. People start the process, but what we ask folks to do is look deeply into place. And a lot of Mary Graham's work and the work of Western scientists that we collaborate with has informed the starting place to have healthy bioregions, healthy wetlands and waterways, biodiversity. And because AILA is so earth-centered, we talk about the wombats and the plants and the trees and the blue-banded bees a whole lot, particularly in the first few steps of Green Prints. Healthy country and healthy, flourishing people. We've got a simplified version of the steps are on the website. These steps represent a phenomenal amount of research into different tools that are out there. We've also built what we call our democratizing information and data sets tool, which is the mapping stuff. We help communities dig down in understanding their place first. That's why the steps start with thinking differently, defining our ecological boundaries, understanding our ecological foundations, and then jumping into the middle bit, which is human beings. What do we get up to? What have we been doing, both as Indigenous folks and settler colonial peoples? And then we move through other things. So when we say Green Prints is two things, it's a process, it's also an outcome. Communities can develop really rigorous scenarios, looking at different outcomes for their places, depending on how they have defined their own ecological boundaries. I don't need to say much more, really. If next year we're doing our Green Prints adventure, got about 8 different community folks, and none of this is incompatible with anyone else's stuff. It's completely compatible with all of the good works that WWF and other folks are doing. This is just a way of helping people really understand the biophysical realities of where we live and trying to comply, I guess, with the call of people like Mary Graham to build the relationalist ethos as the starting point for how we do this work. The only thing I think I wanted to share with you was when I did come across donut economics before Kate wrote her book, when she wrote the articles for Oxfam, I remember thinking that having an ecological ceiling, linking that to planetary boundaries and social foundations was excellent, but something was missing. And then later I got one of my graphic designers to do what we call the Green Prints donut, which is saying the human beings are definitely the social foundations, but we actually live on place, and the bioregional and caring for country foundations are important. And we reframe it as not living space for humanity, but living space for the whole Earth community. So thanks to James Lee for putting up with me saying, I want Aussie animals in my donut. And we had to have representations of plants, trees, insects. So you see the platypi and the koala. I'm not going to say anything more about Green Prints. People know that I can talk about it literally nonstop for days. Really excited to have Regen Brisbane as a playground for some of our ideas. Regen Sydney's connecting to it as well. And many other groups are dabbling with it wherever they need it, wherever we can be useful. And kind of similar to what Dimity was saying with their approach, a sort of peer-to-peer learning. None of us know exactly what we're up to, but bringing everyone together to have a good bash at it is pretty awesome. And I should say that I think everyone, but particularly the work we do, builds on the shoulders of awesome human beings who've done work, for years, decades in transition towns, and even the building of the New Economy Network, and all of these pieces of work are all invaluable and are woven into the tapestry. I don't know, my chair is appearing. It looks like it's about to eat me. So thank you for listening to my very short version of Green Prints. I'll pop some of the links in there in a moment. And now it's my great pleasure to see if Trish Hanson would like to join us and talk from Adelaide. Are you there, Trish?
Hello. Yes, I am.
Thank you again, Kira. I'm going to take the spotlight off you. You can relax now. And I'll try to find Trish. there she is. Hello, lovely lady. And Spotlight. How are you?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. And I've just joined the call. Unfortunately, I've been in another meeting, so I've just jumped in.
It's totally fine, love. Other people started and then they've jumped out. So
Okay.
one day you can watch the recording. But look, everyone, this is Trish Hanson, part of the Regen Adelaide gang. And Trish, we've been inviting folks to share for 5 to 10 minutes, just a quick update of where you've been going and how you've been going and where you're up to next. Thanks, darling.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'll keep it pretty short. And I'd like to acknowledge that I am here on beautiful Kaurna country in Adelaide, Tantanya, South Australia. And this work is actually informed by the wisdom that's always been here. And it shapes our every day of every minute of every day of our lives. And so Regen Adelaide started we're still going fairly slowly, really, and we're going in a direction, and that is towards accelerating a regenerative future for Greater Adelaide. Plus, the plus is knowing that the boundaries are just a very important part of fiction, if you like. And so we started just over a year ago with a gathering of a few of us, knowing we wanted to do something, not knowing how to go about it, not wanting to set up another entity and go hard at something again. None of us have the energy or time for that. So we just had a kitchen table event in October last year as part of the Conscious Cities Festival. It was held in a museum of discovery. We had about 80 people come, which was pretty good on a weekday afternoon. And we really got a sense that so much capacity and so many wonderful things and great people are already doing extraordinary things towards a regenerative future. So we really started to wonder what might a Regen Adelaide platform do then to complement and amplify what already exists. So we came away from that and then held a launch event just last April where we showed the Regen film. We did that in partnership with the ASBN, the Adelaide Sustainable Building Network, an incredible organisation that's been advocating for sustainable building for, I think, about a decade. And really interestingly, has a very strong community around it. And I'm just quickly looking at who's here to see if Kerry from ASBN's here, but she hasn't made it yet. At that launch event, we also launched a Discord platform, which we asked our friend from the Global Regeneration Collab, David Hodgson, what platform to use. We were thinking Slack, but David advised definitely go for Discord. So that's what we've gone with. No platform is ideal. They're all annoying and frustrating, but we do have a platform, and it's essentially we're seeing it as a community centre that's digital. So we've got people joining up there. We've got, channels for events, channels for asking for help, giving back, inspiration. So even Earth Laws is featuring there at the moment, the Earth Laws month. And of course, we've got a hashtag channel for what's happening Regen Australia. And we're just trying to work out what the best way is to connect at a national level and then internationally. Our next event is next week, next Tuesday. We're partnering with Cellars, Bowden Cellars, and the focus, it's called Good Grapes and Grubs, and we're focusing on natural winemaking. So wine is really important part of life here, and food and wine in South Australia. And so we've got 3 extraordinary biodynamic natural winemakers presenting their ways of how they are shifting towards regenerative, and they work really hard at it. It's really incredibly affirming when we hear people that have been dedicated to this for decades without the words, and how they are now being seen, and that's really exciting. The reason we've done that is because there's a lot of people that will come to a wine event, including ministers and other leaders, that wouldn't necessarily come to a Regen event. We need to find ways in and show a lot of humility in how we invite people into this journey that we're all on. We're just coming from different places. So the next step is for us, and we're a small group of volunteers at the moment, the next step for us is to think of a strategy that's got enough bones on it for us to think about what needs to be funded, and then how we lead that as a backbone organisation. And the next time you hear from Regen Adelaide, it might be from someone else. We're all very conscious that it can't just sit with one person. It's actually got to be regenerative in itself. So we're exploring what that is. And I'm looking forward to introducing Beatrice Jevons as who might become our spokesperson, who I don't think she's made it either because she's on an aeroplane. She's cycling around, returning from a cycling trip around Europe right now. And B leads festival sustainability in festivals. So it's really, and we've got a film showing as part of that next week's event, saying that there's other people leading films, and there's other activities going on constantly in regeneration across every aspect of life here. And so really wanting to still follow the direction rather than have a firm strategic plan that's too far looking. And we're trying to respond iteratively and responsively to what we think is helpful. So one of our next meetings after next week will be partnering with the CWA in a regional area, which is part of the Regen Adelaide Plus, hosting a kitchen table event in a town hall, showing the movie again, but where the CWA are leading a conversation with our support with agribusiness and local producers. So we're just following our nose, and so no slides and nothing fancy yet, but we're getting a bit more formalised, but certainly going in that direction. And very happy to take questions or hear from others.
Yeah, we're meant to be having a bit of a chat at the end, but really, although it feels like we're just moving from one speaker to another, that's the point. This is a showcase of where everyone's up to and what's happening, hopefully to excite people to connect. Thank you, Trish. And I have to say, I really love the idea of having a wine night. Kira, let's have a think about perhaps similar events in Brisbane. I was thinking in almost a joking fashion. We do have the 4X brewery in Brisbane, but I don't think we really want to quite go in that direction just yet, but it could be fun. Thank you again, Trish. And we'll come back at the very end and see who got questions for who. Thank you. And now I'd like to invite Tim Collings. Tim's involved with regenerative activities in Nowra, as well as running his own podcast, which I've been delighted to be on recently. So over to you, Tim, for a bit of an update from your part of the world.
Thanks, Michelle, and thank you for the plug. Much appreciated. There might maybe be one coming back at you. I have some slides. I have to confess, I'm kind of resisting showing them, but I think I will, just from the perspective of people may not know where Nowra is, or when we say this is South Coast. So may I share? How do I do that? Oh yes, there we go. Thank you.
May. It should be working. I set it up.
Okay, can everybody see some slidey things?
Yes. Excellent.
Okay, so the name of our initiative is currently before you. And names are interesting and tricky when the current participants of your initiative span 2 Aboriginal language zones and 5 bioregions. So trying to think beyond the English language is complicated. So we'll roll with this. And it seems to be working for the folk that live here. This is the South Coast. And this is where we are, right? So you see the arrow down here. This is Darawal and Yuin country, and I have a specific prompt that I'll speak to our acknowledgement in a moment. But essentially, as we sort of think about ourselves following the noses of those who have invited us in, the initiative currently has participants from Wollongong in the north to Cobargo in the south, which is a long, narrow bioregional corridor between the ocean and the dividing range. And sort of primary for us is the centering of Aboriginal ways of knowing, doing and being as the original regenerators of this land. And so we very respectfully acknowledge the unceded lands of Dharawal and Yuin peoples in our work. And, you know, I'll come to our seeding journey in a minute, but it's taken us some time to even sort of emerge, because we've really wanted to wait to be invited to go on this journey by the Aboriginal people in this area. And that is the juncture that we're very honoured to be at. And having spoken to place and done an acknowledgement, these are some of the people. These are the kind of the keenest folk and the folk with the most energy. There are others that could be acknowledged for their contributions already. And, you know, there are, of the core team, we have 25% Aboriginal participation. And we hope that that will soon grow. And, you know, this is circle work. So, you know, everything we do is you know, reciprocal and participatory. I mean, look, in short, the seeding journey emanated out of a conversation with aspiring Greens council members around what's a sort of a really core central issue or campaigning it, you know, sort of desire in this region. And regeneration was a word that was used, and curiosity was sort of brought up about what that is. And so it's been a year-long seeding journey of exploring what is being done, what is needed, connecting with local Aboriginal communities, and really sort of sensing and responding. So we had a catalyst, thank you, Dimity, and the WWF initiative to basically surface the desire for this initiative to be in the world. And as Dimity mentioned earlier, we had 60 folk, you know, sort of young and not so young, come and engage with that. And I'll speak to some of the things that showed up in that recently. And now there is an intention to gather. So the invitation has been extended to gather in Corroboree, and we're going through the process of trying to find ways and means to do that with quite a significant number of people. And I'm going to be interrupted, perfect timing, by my own small people. Hang on, darling, I'm just in the middle of something. Can you just wait 2 minutes? Come here. When I finish, just wait. Can you say hello? This is Imogen, everybody. So look, it is very much a partnership journey, and here comes the plug. So we're in dialogue with Green Prince about joining the Green Prince adventure next year, and have a definite intention to do so. We're also partnering with a capability building co-op, Campfire, who've been running art of hosting training, amongst other ways of participatory being in this region and others for a long time, and they're now on the journey with us, as well as a local not-for-profit who will be auspicing, we hope, some funds from some local philanthropists. And ours really is a culture, consciousness, and enterprise initiative. And really, these are the 3 lines of work that we see our role being to satisfy needs around. Excuse me, sweetheart. And some examples of some things that are here and some things that are emerging. So these are Regenerative Enterprises, 2 Aboriginal-led native foodways and South Coast seaweed, and a bioplastics startup that we're supporting, advocating for, meeting with investors to draw attention towards. I was sitting with a local philanthropist yesterday talking about these enterprises. And then out of workshop and other things that are sort of showing themselves now, there is desire to use gifted farmland to set up a local food swap, to set up kinship gardens, to nurture all beings, and to provide native ingredients to an Aboriginal-led not-for-profit, to set up a microgrid initiative as a test case, and to set up a nature school in... Yes, sweetheart, you can have that. All right, do you want? I'll come and find you in a moment. All right. So that's the long and the short of it. That's where we're up to, and that's the journey that we're on. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tim. And for the lovely demonstration of your own regeneration there with your small child. Always welcome on a Zoom call. My daughter's now 14 and she pretty much grew up, well, Ayla is her little sister, she says, but she's grown up for 10 years on watching people on Zoom. Thank you so much, Tim. And look, we've now reached that time where we're pretty much finished. a lovely lady called Mia Isherwood, who lives up in far north Queensland, and who's been connecting to WWF and has been involved in AILA and Greenprints. They've also had a screening of the Regen movie, and they're looking at trying to build some Regen tableland kind of activities. And I should also mention that the New Economy Network Australia has multiple hubs around Australia, and the Perth hub, the Brisbane hub, and probably the Sydney hub are sort of merging with the Regen bits too. So that's really exciting. So yeah, so some folks like Rhiannon Hardwick will be involved in Perth, and we'll also be connecting with anything that's on, including the Greenprints adventure. So lots of good things happening. I might take the spotlight off Tim. So look, we've got, even if we have 15 minutes, you know, what I can do is officially close this discussion at 5 p.m. But I was happy to stay on for another 10 or 15 after that if folks want to keep talking to each other. But first of all, I guess I just want to thank all our speakers and then see if anyone has any questions, including, perhaps I'd start with, do any of our speakers have questions for other speakers, because you are the folks involved in the current Regen projects. Anything? Tim says, be right back, I'm going to get fruit or maybe ice cream. Sounds like it might need ice cream. Trish, I have one question. Do you guys in Adelaide have a link that you can share with us in terms of public info? And I'm sorry if it's already in the chat, but I couldn't see it. Do you have a website or a Facebook page?
Yes, we do. And I'd like to acknowledge Kerry Reed's joined us from Democracy Co, one of the other core Regen Adelaide crew. Yes, yeah, we've got a Facebook, we've got a YouTube channel, Kerry, haven't we? And
we do.
Instagram and a Discord. But yeah, the Discord's not public as such because we're trying to keep it kind of hyper local. If someone joins, great, but it's very South Australian.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, guys and girls.
Yeah.
Well, unless any of our speakers have other questions for each other, I'm completely open to anyone asking a question or wanting to have a chat. Ash has his hand up, I think. Ash, would you like to go off mute and say hello?
Yes, thanks, Michelle.
Hello.
And thanks everyone, and yeah, great to be with everyone here as well. Michelle, I just had a question with regard to Greenprints, and yeah, feeling very proud of the fact that and the effort that you and your team and everything you've built this around perhaps a very specific Australian context and kind of bringing that dimension of kind of difference that you showed building off or kind of integrating it with the donut and so on. I just wondered, Michelle, if is the Greenprints experience relevant for perhaps someone who's, you know, at a particular point in a community or a little venture of sorts? Could they be kind of experiencing Greenprints in a different way, or does it have to be all involved in kind of the steps?
No,
knowing the details of it, but I just wondered about.
Yeah, no, if you're interested as an individual, just jump on the website, have a look at the info, have a think. We've got a Greenprints exchange where we've invited certain folks from around Australia to be part of our, I don't like advisory group, but they're kind of really good mates who know stuff network. We've got lots of people contributing in. We've got a number of volunteers supporting us. It's not a funded program. We've been running it as volunteers for yonks. As AILA has been a volunteer-led group for 8.5 years of its 10 years. So everyone's welcome to jump in and communicate and connect, and yeah. And if you want more info, please just shoot me an email and I'll chat. I will talk to anyone anytime about anything, but particularly Greenprints. So you'd be welcome to have a look at it. And if there's anything interesting, you know, we'd be honored to have you come and play with us.
Thank you so much.
No worries. And thank you for the question. Any other questions, folks? Tim, I have a question. Was it fruit or ice cream?
Suspect you know the answer to that.
I was joking. I think this time of day it's going to have to be ice cream to keep that child happy while you finish chatting. So Yeah. Well, look, it has been an epic 2 hours, and I am just delighted to have heard everybody's talks. So I won't start wrapping up yet because I just noticed Dimity's got a hand up. Dimity, please fire away.
Sorry if everyone wanted to go home.
No.
Everyone can, Zoom's like that. This is another question, I guess it's for Regen Adelaide, but I think it's also for anybody who's involved in this work. And what are you learning about stimulating community-led regeneration, and what from your efforts with conversations and kitchen tables and conversations, what's emerging as a result? What are the capabilities that are strengthening? What's possible as a result of these convenings? Anyone?
Can I jump in straight away then? Because you did mention Adelaide, so I'll start.
I did. Thanks.
I'd love to hear from Kerry on this, because Kerry's had 10 years experience building community around the Adelaide Sustainable Building Network. But as a classic example of that, our launch was held in partnership with ASBN, and Josh Voigt, who owns Bowden Cellars, is the host of the next event. So he would never have been in a position to host a conversation around regenerative agricultural winemaking, viticulture and oenology. But now, because of this conversation, he has the confidence. He doesn't have to be an expert in regeneration. He's surrounded by enough people that can help sense check what's going on and make sure that it's real. And so I'd say that's an immediate learning, is that when one relationship is built from a direct connection, it is incredibly powerful. What do you think, Kerry?
Yeah, I'd echo that. And I think with the Sustainable Building Network, we really experience a lot of it often only takes a small boost, or what feels like a small boost from us, whether that be, creating event tickets, or just saying, yes, go for it, or, just saying, ask us questions if you need, those kind of things, to then enable someone else to do something. So sometimes we do a lot of collaborating on events and things like that, and someone will have this thing that's been burning in their head, but there's a piece that's been missing for it to kind of come together and come to fruition. And sometimes sometimes for us it's an audience. So 10 years we've got however many thousand people across our different channels. Sometimes it's just a little bit of event help, because we do it a bit more often than other people do. It's just seeing where we can insert ourselves to boost and keep lifting, connecting and lifting, basically.
Thanks, Kerry. Anyone else? I saw some nods and.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And Kira, myself, James Lee and others in Regen Brisbane, it is the thing we ponder. How do we build community? How do we bring people in? And not only just for an event and keep them excited, but how do we keep things going, And by building, I don't know about you, Kira, but in terms of my Regen Brisbane hat, I think the coolest thing is when you honour and really obviously respect everybody's existing work. And I know everyone knows this. You don't sort of roll in going, we're doing something amazing. It's like, we know that many of you folks out there have been doing amazing stuff for either decades. Kira works with the catchment management groups across Brisbane. We've connected with lots of different people and really honouring their work and giving them a platform to promote what they're doing, as well as sharing with others and getting new cross-sectoral audiences. We find that I think, at least, what do you think, Kira? I think that people like that. They like a new audience and new friends. And
yeah, I've found that people are just sort of excited that there's this I think an avenue with a shared vision for everybody, and all their work have been sort of carrying with them for so long, and they're just like, this is kind of, from what people tell me, is that this is just a really good way to get that work out there and to be able to connect with other organizations and individuals and and get that work you know, sort of like in action. I think lots of people have a lot of ideas but didn't know how to, you know, go about, you know, getting those projects on the ground. And I think Regen cities are a good way of, you know, giving them an outlet to be able to connect with others and, you know, create projects with others. So yeah, that's what I've been experiencing, definitely.
And I think a bit of humility too about the longer term vision. Like I watched transition towns, you know, sort of kick off from being inspired by what was happening in Britain. And many of those groups in Transition Australia are still around, but there's a natural ebb and flow to movements, and sort of perhaps even acknowledging that we're jumping on our little canoe inside this general flow of trying to do the right thing by planet Earth. Right now, that little canoe might be called Regen. I keep joking, because I had green prints all kind of started to knitting it together when the Regen movement bubbled up, even after we built NIDA. And I said, right, I'm putting my green prints surfboard on the Regen wave. It's all good, you know, whatever comes and goes, but we just got to keep that awesomeness and the momentum, I think. Any other questions anyone has for anyone else? Oh, there's something interesting in the chat. I'll see if it's public. Oh, it's not published, but I was kind of taken aback. Someone's just mentioned about they had a conversation recently with someone else trying to do ethical mining. That is a whole nother conversation. By definition, most extractivism is not in any way regenerative. You can do it better ways, you can do it the good way or the bad way, but it's all still ultimately not probably the things to be doing. Any other questions, folks? I'm aware we've all been together for 2 hours, so oh, Tim, excellent. Got a question?
Oh, it's more a kind of a reflection, I think, on Dimity's prompt, and building on what's already been said. I mean, absolutely, like the humility, you know, is kind of a must, and I also like the real deep kind of compassion for you know, folk who've been through a heck of a lot, right? You know, so the whole span of our region was impacted by the Currawong fire in the Black Summers, and then we've had floods, and then we had COVID, and then we've had floods, and then we've had landslides, and then we've had floods, right? Like, you know, so to kind of rock up and be all like super action, you know, go, 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 bags of energy, you know, this is the new train, come on, jump on. Like, it's not going to fly. So I think really for us, it's been a sort of a sensing that like, there's no need to, you know, sort of try and justify why this needs to be done in a region like this. There is so much pent up desire for things to be different, for the cohesion to be back in community, for the coherence to be back in life and what it's all about. What people seem to be seeking more than anything else is experts. And exactly as been said here, like that's the kind of that little sidestep that we're trying to get up front as well. It's like, no. Not experts here, like on the journey, fellowship.
Yeah.
You know, come up, here's the invitation, right? Come along. And that holding of space, like, I know that is like the most oversimplified term in this work, but it's like, if you can do that and show up, like beautiful thing emerges. Well, all kinds of things, right? Dark and light will emerge, but mainly beauty. And then it's well, okay, how do we sustain this, and what do we do together, and how are we walking inclusively? And these are the things. So yeah, I don't know how much of that is helpful or even coherent for me at this point. But I have that to share as simple as a reflection. So there we are.
Well, I think it's a wonderful reflection, and I think you're absolutely right on all counts. People have been through so much, and we know that we're in for a whole lot more. Speaking very frankly, I'm very frightened of the next time that our summers start to dry up again. The floods were terrible, absolutely terrible, but I still find those fires the most terrifying thing. And, you know, even optimistic people like me, there was a point at the end of those fires when you were seeing the numbers of animals, the 3 billion number, when even folks like me were under the doona going, I don't want to live on this planet anymore if all the creatures are gone. So we've got some dark times ahead, I think. I was once called Pollyanna because I'm always trying to put a positive spin on everything. And I say, look, I cling to optimism as a way of getting up every day. But I think we all know that a lot of these groups, if we can provide moral support for each other and solidarity and compassion and just being a decent human being, then I think that's part of it. Dimity has just been whacked in the face by another member of the Earth community. I think it must be dinner time for that cat. She's literally being wrestled off.
Sorry. Yeah, he's trying. Anyway, sorry about that.
I think it's great. As someone, I have 2 dogs, a cat, and many other species in my household, thanks to my daughter and husband. I'm often the one being pushed off the chair by hungry dogs. So, yeah. But no, Tim, I don't mean to be flippant about the cat, but these issues are important, and it's really lovely to share that kind of honesty with each other. You know, none of us really know what we're doing, except perhaps some of the Indigenous elders we work with personally. But just keep trying and listening and trying to do good. It's good stuff. Any other questions, comments? We have got an absolute massive amount of links and comments in that chat. So may I suggest that you actually try to copy the chat and put it onto a Word document for yourself. And if you do lose it, just shoot us an email. We capture all the chats. But the chat today has everybody's web links, including Regen Sydney, who couldn't join us today. Lots of great things to look at. And at the moment, the one place that has most of the Regen sort of cities initiatives listed in terms of their websites is the New Economy Network Australia website, if you lose stuff. But I think the Regen Songlines website will eventually host, and anyone can host them, but actually gather all the different groups and their web links so that folks who are new can find different things. So but without further ado, yeah, we might say thanks so much to everybody. And it's been an absolutely wonderful opportunity to listen to everyone's stories. Do keep in touch. WWF have got their second round of funding opportunities, so get onto them. All of the different Regen groups have events coming up, so get onto them. Let's see how we go, and hope to see you all very soon. And a final plug, Earth Laws Month continues into the rest of September. Please check out the program. Lots of terrific events all over the place. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye. Thank you.
See everybody. Thank you.